Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell coming at you live on a Tuesday. Coming at you before the Badger Bowl game. We're getting our caffeine in now. Still have another 4 hours before that game rolls off. So, in honor of the
Thank
Badgers,
you, NCAA.
Yes. In honor of the Badgers playing today, did have news come out. Mr. J.J. Watt is retiring from the NFL effective after this season. Played his last home game over the weekend, has 2 more road games coming up. But question of the day today, Jell, in your lifetime, who is on your personal Mount Rushmore of Wisconsin Badger football players?
Well, you got to throw, I think you have to put J.J. Watt in there. I mean, he's arguably the most, but 2010 to 2020, the best defensive player in the league. Not, overall over that decade span. So I think he's got to be up there. Joe Thomas, a 13-time Pro Bowler. I know he never won anything, but that's not his fault. He was with Cleveland.
Right.
If we're talking, are you talking NFL or all time, including their college careers?
Just your personal Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I'll throw as bad as this season has been for Russell Wilson. I got to put him in there. Just given his college career and what he's, he wasn't that much of, he only spent that very limited amount of time with the Badgers. Was it just the one season?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was one or he got a second season there. So, just the one season, but what he's done, and he's represented the Badgers, represented himself as a Badger his entire NFL career, even though he played way more college ball at NC State. And I think he's still a little bit, a little petty action on that about getting let go for who's the long neck quarterback that the Bears signed, Mike Glennon.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who Russell Wilson was replaced by at NC State. And then I guess let me go my fourth, and then I've got outside looking in. Number 4, and this is my all-time favorite Badger, Lee Evans, wide receiver, monster 2003 season, high pick by the Buffalo Bills after that season. Never really amounted to much in the NFL, but the Bills at that time also never had a quarterback, and not everybody ends up panning out in the league, but still an all-time Badger, still holds a ton of Badger receiving records 2 decades later. So all-time Badger there. And then outside looking in, tight end, Travis Beckham.
Nice.
Single-digit tight end number. You got to love that. So, Travis Beckham on the outside looking in, but he could sneak his way in if it weren't for Lee Evans and his awesomeness.
I like it. I echo 2 of yours. JJ Watt, obviously, Joe Thomas, obviously, just one of the best linemen ever. And like you said, not a great NFL career as far as accolades due to him being on the shitstorm that has been
accolades in terms of championships, individual accolades though. Correct. He was all time. He's one of the all time offensive linemen ever.
Yep. Next one up, I've got Ron Dean.
I was thinking about it, but he was a little bit before my time.
He was right at the start of my Badger football heyday that I can remember. And he was just absolutely unstoppable. One of the biggest bodied running backs that was fairly agile and mobile and just, so much fun. Helped us win 2 Rose Bowl victories early 2000. So obviously up there for me.
And it was really him and Barry Alvarez that, when Barry Alvarez, with Ron Dane's presence, that's when Barry kind of turned this program around.
Yeah. Then I got Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, had he stayed for his senior year, would have set a lot of Badger records and ended up leaving early, which understandably, running back position in the NFL is not the longest of positions. And so no fault there. Don't blame him for leaving at all, but just absolutely fun to watch. And then my honorable mentions, Melvin Gordon set the NCAA single game rushing record in 3 quarters. 3
Insane.
Quarters. Only to be
I remember that game
next week.
Madness.
Yeah.
I know we're not super into college basketball yet, but could you build yourself a Mount Rushmore off the top of your head?
Oh,
let me throw in there Frank the Tank Kaminsky,
Frank,
Kirk Penny. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep. In the early 2000s. Oh, I mean, that Bronson Koenig team, he was also part of that team with Frank the Tank that went to the Final Four and made that title run.
Throw him in there.
Londo Tucker.
Yep.
Londo Tucker's got to be in there.
Yep. And yeah, those are some fun teams.
And then Bo Ryan, Barry Alvarez, like that's the early 2000s all the way till about 2010-ish. Maybe not quite that long for Barry, but
yeah, he had a couple of celebrity guest appearances, coaches in their bowl games.
Celebrity shot, come on in, Barry.
Yeah, exactly. But no, we have been lucky as Badger fans to have 2 fairly solid men's programs, along with tons of awesome women's programs as well. The hockey team, Natty Championships.
This volleyball team has been ridiculous the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
My aunt and uncle actually they bought season tickets 2 or 3 years ago, like right before they were like national champions and stuff. So they got in at the perfect time. Nice. And now it's tough to even, to get tickets.
Oh yeah. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. We are also on YouTube. You can see our wonderful faces bringing a podcast to you. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports. Be the first thing that pops up. Viewers. Subscribe and click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. Typically early in the week or midweeks when we drop our live episode. We monitor that chat, so you can ask us any questions there. Dynasty offseason coming up. Maybe you have some questions on keepers, maybe some questions incoming freshmen. So you can go ahead and ask us questions there. And if you want to follow us on our individual socials, Gel can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, and we will send you some swag for doing so. All right, have a fun episode for you. Just have a quick couple tidbits here for NCAA Bowl Week 2 recap. We're going to throw at you 14 non-New Year's 6 bowl game pick'ems during this episode.
Bowl season, baby.
Bowl season full force. And then quite a bit of other NFL news and recap. Playoff positions are starting to solidify themselves, so we will have you covered for the NFL segment. But one tidbit, Wake Forest won their bowl game this last week, and then their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman's like, yeah, I'm going to enter the portal. So he is now in the portal. Rumors are flying that Notre Dame might be the landing spot there, so that'd be pretty solid.
That doesn't shock me one bit. I mean, they're QB needy at this point. They had a pretty good season, all things considered, given how they started off, starting off the season 0-3 and turning things around. Marcus Freeman showing that, he couldn't, I said in our interview with Brian No, I believe he's 36 years old, and it's a big step going from a DC to a head coach at that young of an age, but he showed that he can rally a team at the very least. And I think Sam Hartman would be a great add there, especially with Drew Pine, their this season starting quarterback, leaving. I was just a little bit shocked that, and he obviously must have just wanted one final game with his guys, but how many of these guys that end up entering the transfer portal do you see finishing off the season, finishing off that last bowl game with their teammates before entering the portal? That's just a little bit shocking and just a little bit different.
Yeah. You almost wonder too. I mean, we're not really sure on how it's working behind the scenes at all, but you almost wonder if a school missed out on maybe their top target and then just kind of sent some feelers out like, hey, we'd love to have you come in, be our quarterback next year. And maybe that's what ended up happening. I mean, it's hard to know exactly how all of the NIL stuff is working out and all of the transfers and everything too, and luring players. I mean, we saw that with Jordan Addison last year with Pitt. I mean, Pitt had a solid season, then all of a sudden he's getting lured over to USC. So
when we've seen SEC teams try to do that with Drake May.
Yeah.
The rumor of 2 SEC teams offering $5 million for Drake May for the season. I mean, and Pat Narduzzi, head coach at Pitt, somehow knows all about it. must be great friends with Mac Brown or something. But
right.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been, that those Notre Dame boosters could have been like, hey, Sam, want to finish out your career over here? We got some cash, got some we got some Monopoly money over here for you.
Yep. Last news item, breaking news just dropped prior to us hitting record, and Bethune Cookman hires head coach Ed Reed.
Hey, all right. I guess Ed's going he's going to try to go the Deion Sanders route.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe he's thinking, okay, I put in 2 great years here. Miami, they continue to struggle. He's a former Hurricane.
Yeah.
I mean,
solid.
I'm sure Deion was hoping for that Florida State job, but they've really righted the ship. If Miami doesn't right the ship and he puts up some great years with Bethune, I thought it was Bethune.
Bethune
Cookman, whatever. It doesn't matter. I know the spelling. I've certainly never watched any of their games. But this is a lot less interesting, I think, than Deion taking over a program.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed Reed's badass, but Deion's a big personality.
Yeah.
You saw him for years on NFL Network and everything. So a little bit less interested in this one, but hopefully it works out for him. I mean, he's a badass. I certainly don't want to ever get tackled by him.
Absolutely. Any other takeaways from this last week of bowl games, Jell, before we jump into our pick'em?
Just happy to see Air Force get me another victory on the upset pick'em train here. That Middle Tennessee State coming through with a W. Of course, for you took Wake Forest, and you're about to get this W with Memphis. So we're going to end up at an even 3-3 for this week before the ECU games and before the Memphis game start.
Memphis did go final 38-10. So chalk that one up for the good guys.
Unfortunately, Georgia Southern or Bowling Green came through for neither of us, but
yeah.
I still got work to do, apparently.
Yes.
Dumb nuts. Let's go Coastal.
All right. So we are going to jump in. We're going to save the New Year's 6 games for our next recording. Those are the big bowl games of the season. So we're going to run through 14 bowl games for you here, give our picks, and we'll kick it off, Jill. Coming up tomorrow, today, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, Military Bowl presented by Payton. UCF versus Duke. Who you got in that one?
Well, nothing says Military Bowl like Central Florida versus Duke. Oh my gosh. But I gotta go with Dick Vitale's favorite team here and go with the Dukies, baby. Oh yeah, they're on fire. The Dukies, baby.
I'm going with Duke too. They're favorites in this one. They've had a great season, kind of under the radar. Head coach, blanking on his name, but came over and is doing just a fantastic job this year in his first season. All right. Looks like
Well,
Jill's looking up.
I look up Duke head coach, but of course I get their basketball program because why would their football team be relevant?
Great. All right. AutoZone Liberty Bowl.
Get in the zone.
AutoZone. Hashtag not a sponsor.
But they can be. That's where I got my battery test done for free. Yes. Hashtag not a sponsor.
Kansas, Arkansas. Who you got in this one, Joe? Mike Elko. That was the coach I'm thinking of.
Who?
Mike Elko.
Ew. If I start a company, I'm stealing his last name. AutoZone. Let's go. I'm gonna go Kansas. I think they've had I just really like the season they put together. Gotta love Lance Leopold here. Double L. Yeah, I just love the season they've had. Arkansas season feels kind of like a lost cause at this point. I think Kansas is ready to roll in this bowl game and prove to people that, hey, we're not quitting, even though we fell, in the middle of the season, kind of fell off a little bit with their starting quarterback out. They're here to stay, and Leopold is an awesome coach. So I tend to lean high end coaches in these bowl games.
Yeah, I'm rocking Kansas too. Like you said, Arkansas, they've just tapered off so much. Started off season ranked, moved up in the rankings, and then just have a slow decline since then. KJ Jefferson's not the quarterback that we saw at the beginning of the year. He's kind of tapered off as well. I think Kansas, this is their first time being bowl eligible in a while, is going to come out firing, have something to play for. This is their Super Bowl. So I think Kansas is going to come out with a W in this one. Sticking to Wednesday, San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. That is a mouthful, and this is low-key the game that I am looking forward to the most this offseason, I think, during bowl season. Oregon versus North Carolina. I think it's just going to be so many points scored in this one. I think it really could be a toss-up. I think I'm going to lean Oregon in this one as much as I like Drake May. I think Bo Nix is going to actually have one of his better games in this one, kind of a soft defense in North Carolina. And there's just so much athleticism on that Oregon offense, so much speed that I think they're going to end up getting the best in North Carolina in this one and coming away with a very close victory.
I got to stick with the third of four teams that made the Final Four last year. The college basketball blue bloods, baby. Gotta go UNC here. I got Duke, I got Kansas, I gotta go UNC. But
that's awesome.
But really, I mean, what I do love is the fact that Drake May said that, he's really dedicated to this school. He addressed these rumors about him getting offered that $5 million. He said he didn't know anything about him. I don't know what to believe or who to believe in that scenario, but he said even if he was offered that, he would stay at UNC. His brother Luke May went to UNC, hit that 2017 game-winning three-pointer to send UNC into the Final Four. So he just loves UNC. No, his father is not Sean May, the basketball player back in the early mid 2000s. But yeah, I just love that Drake May is staying, and I think that love for the school and kind of gives them a little bit of school pride, a little bit of program pride. I think that's going to help propel this blue blood into to a W.
Sounds good. I like it. All right, moving into the last game on Wednesday, the TexAct Texas Bowl. This one is between Texas Tech, lots of Texas.
Tax Act. Should be Tax Act. Okay. Like the
taxes
incoming, like for the taxes.
Okay.
I assume. I don't know what a Tex Act is.
I'm gonna double check that, but yeah. Anyways, Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. Who you got in this one, Joe?
It is the Tax Act. TAXACT. As much as I want to go Texas Tech here, given that this game is in Texas, I just think Ole Miss is a way more talented team. And Lane Kiffin has had an awesome recruiting period and scoring in this transfer portal. Not that any of those players are going to be playing in this game, but I think that program just continues to move in the right direction, and Lane Kiffin's going to give them a little bit of momentum going into this game. So, Ole Miss.
All right. I also have Ole Miss in this one. Like you mentioned, Texas Tech, their defense is not good. And I just think Ole Miss is going to be putting up points.
When has it ever been?
On points. Yeah, exactly. So I think this one's going to get ugly, and I got Ole Miss running away with this one. Moving on to the Thursday slate, the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Yeah. Syracuse versus Minnesota. I got Minnesota in this one. I think Muhammad Ibrahim is going to be too much. I think him rested up for a month now since their last game is just going to be too much for Syracuse. Syracuse does have Sean Tucker. They played well this season, but I have Minnesota on this one, unfortunately, being a Badger fan.
I'm gonna roll Syracuse, given that this is at Yankee Stadium. Got that home field advantage a little bit. I mean, it's the other side of the state, but it's upstate New York versus NYC Bronx, but little home cooking for Syracuse. They did taper off a little bit at the end of or quite a bit, I should say, at the end of the year. They started off, hot as balls, but I as much as Ibrahimovic is scary, I think that I still got to roll Q's here.
Sounds good.
And again, mascot advantage, hardcore goes to the orange.
Yes. Fuck you, Goldie. Cheez-It Bowl, Oklahoma versus Florida State. I got Florida State in this one. Oklahoma barely coming in and making a bowl game this year. And Florida State has been low-key very good as well, 9-3 record on the season. I think they're going to be too much for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's focused more on improving for next season. I don't know that they're going to be really fired up to play in the Cheez-It Bowl this year. So I got Florida State.
Nothing more to say other than Oklahoma's not good. So I'm rolling Florida State as well.
All right. Valero Alamo Bowl. Next up, Texas, Washington. This is actually going to be a pretty solid
This is
game.
probably my favorite game on this slate.
All right. Take her away, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, we get to see Quinn Ewers. We get to see this Washington team that's been really hot, ended up having a really, really good season for a team that really flew under the radar until they ended up beating Oregon. And then they faltered a little bit after that, but I believe they lost either the next week or the following. But really a team that flew under the radar. The Washington. I'm going to roll Washington, the Huskies here. This game is in Texas. It's in San Antonio, but I got to roll Washington. I just think they're the better team. And again, as I've said all season, I do not trust Steve Sarkisian whatsoever.
Yep. I'm more concerned with what Quinn Ewers is going to show up in this one too. He's been so inconsistent, especially towards the back half of the season. I don't know if it's that injury that he had suffered early on, if there's some lingering stuff going on there, but I think Washington's going to come out fired up, looking for some momentum going into next year. You had Michael Penix announce that he's coming back for another year. So I like Washington. They were playing very well down the stretch in the Pac-12 towards the end of the season this year. And I think they're going to keep that going into bowl season.
And if you're Ewers too, you kind of have that very large weight of Arch Manning kind of breathing down your neck. And there was a report today that came out like, not so fast, my friend, on Arch Manning redshirting this upcoming season. So Quinn's now going to be facing all that pressure. Just like, this is almost like his final tryout before the spring game comes up next year. And if he does, he might just be feeling that pressure of like, if I don't ball out, like, do I end up losing my job to a Manning, which that's high pressure.
Yeah. Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. This one also is one I think is going to be a pretty good battle. Notre Dame versus South Carolina. I got the Gamecocks in this one. I think Spencer Rattler's been rolling lately, and Shane Beamer's got South Carolina fired up. They had a pretty solid, I think, top 15 incoming class this next year coming in. So
that's impressive. I didn't know that. That's nice.
They've been rolling, and Notre Dame, Drew Pine just left. I don't know what that quarterback situation is going to look like. Gamecocks defense is still pretty solid too. So I think South Carolina is going to be too much for this undermanned Notre Dame team.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll Notre Dame. South Carolina has been hot, but before they really, before the last 3-4 games of the season, they weren't anything special. They obviously got hot. And Notre Dame also Notre Dame at the end of the season, they got hot as well. That running game is nothing to mess around with. They hung in there all game up until the very end with the other USC, the Trojans, in that game. And I think that running game, regardless of who's at quarterback, that running game is going to show up. So I'm going to go Fighting Irish.
Sounds good. Everyone's favorite bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, where both head coaches
the Vomit Bowl.
Both head coaches have agreed to have mayo dumped on their heads. So it should be another fun post-game ceremony there. Maryland, NC State. Who you got in this one, Joe?
I got to roll Maryland. I've always believed in that Maryland talent, and North Carolina's been underwhelming all year. I think that, especially with, and help me out with the name, I don't know how this is like leaving my brain right now, on that NC State quarterback that's transferring.
Oh, Devin Leary.
Or Devin Leary that did already transfer to Kentucky. So he's not going to be playing. It's going to be NC State with their backup quarterback. And like I said, I've always liked Maryland's talent. They've got a couple guys that are leaving for the league. One of their stud wide receivers. So I like Maryland here.
Yeah, NC State, once Devin Leary went down to injury earlier on in the season, they just have not been playing the same, haven't looked that great, very inconsistent. And Maryland's been keeping up with some of the bigger teams in that Big Ten East Division. They had a pretty solid game going against Michigan until that second half. So I think they find a way to put this one all together and come away with the victory. Probably my favorite name here, Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
Yeah.
Should be another solid one too. Pitt UCLA. And I got to roll UCLA in this one. UCLA has been solid this whole season. Pitt has been up and down. Was it Avocanda? His running back. I can't pronounce his last name, but yeah, he's had a solid season so far. But UCLA is going to be too much. Chip Kelly just flipping the Oregon Dante Moore prospect coming in. They've got a lot of momentum going into next season. I think they find a way to win this one.
Yeah, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, as of 2 hours ago, is still on track to play. So that's the only question that I had on this game was, is DTR going to play? And he is. So which that makes sense. I mean, he's been in that program for 6 years. For him to bolt now would be kind of unceremonious. Yeah. So that has me make the easy. It's an easy pick for me to pick the Bruins here and go with the UCLAers. Plus, I got to stick with the Blue Bloods anyways.
Right. Speaking of Blue Bloods, Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, Ohio versus Wyoming. 2 Blue Bloods in the. Yeah, no. I'm rolling with Wyoming here. No particular reason. Just think they're going to end up winning this one. Well,
I got to make up some ground here. I was going to go Wyoming, but I'm down, I think, 5 games right now. Yeah. That could turn into 6. So I better switch it up and I'll go Ohio, even though I don't really want to.
Speaking of Blue Bloods here, Joe, this one is true. We got the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl, Iowa versus Kentucky. 2 lackluster programs right now. Kentucky, obviously, Will Levis declaring for the draft. Who you got in this ugly, ugly game?
Ugly game is right. As much as I don't want to, I'm going to go Kentucky.
Okay.
I like their running backs. Senor Rodriguez. I don't remember his first name. Chris. It is Chris. Okay. Chris
Junior.
Rodriguez. What's that?
Chris Rodriguez Jr.
Junior. Okay. Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Kentucky's played enough games this season, or at least partial games with Will Levis out due to injury, that at least that backup has gotten a little bit of exposure to that offense. And I can't roll with that Iowa pathetic thing that they call offense. So I gotta go Kentucky, sticking with the Blue Bloods.
I'm going to roll with Iowa here. I just think their defense is going to be too much for Kentucky. They have played solid defensively all season. Yes, they have struggled to get points on the board, but I think their defense forces a turnover, maybe switches up the field pretty well, or maybe even gets a return touchdown of some sort in this one. But I just think it's going to be Iowa. I mean, Kentucky lost to Vandy this year. That's bad. that's really bad. Second to last game, we got the ReliaQuest Bowl, Mississippi State versus Illinois. I don't know about you, Joe, but I am not picking against Mississippi State here. They are going to be fired up in this one with the passing of Mike Leach, and I think they're going to play some inspired football in this one and come away with a victory over a tough and up-and-coming Illinois team, I would say. Illinois, obviously solid with Chase Brown back there in the backfield, but yeah, Will Rogers is going to lead the Bulldogs to victory.
Yeah, I mean, my brain tells me go Illinois. Brett Bielema's actually had a really nice season for the Fighting Illini, but with the passing of Leach, I second everything you just said. I think that they're going to just play some really inspired ball, and I got to go Mississippi State as well. All
right. Another Cheez-It Bowl, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, got LSU versus Purdue. I'm going to roll LSU in this one. I was kind of going back and forth, but LSU, Jaden Daniels announced he's coming back. They have struggled quite a bit down the stretch, but I think they're going to find a way to win this one. Purdue, Drew Brees is helping coach in this one, or at least he's an assistant coach for the bowl game, but I don't know if that's going to give Purdue enough star power in this one to come away with a victory.
You think Drew Brees ends up being a better coach than broadcaster on NBC?
It's a pretty low bar.
It's a pretty low bar. God, he was boring. That whole NBC broadcast is pretty damn boring. They need some youth in there. It's all, I guess that's what they tried with Drew Brees, try to bring in some youth, but
yeah. And
now their youth is Jason Garrett and his creepy, puppet smile. I'm gonna go LSU as well, especially with Jaden Daniels. He'll be playing in this game. He's coming back, so nothing more to add there. That's the main reason for me. They had a really nice season. I think Brian Kelly will get his boys up for this one.
Speaking of Drew Brees, had some news from the NFL landscape that came out this last weekend, and it involves Sean Payton. So Sean Payton, former coach of the New Orleans Saints, retired last offseason to take time away from the game. There's a lot of speculation on he's been rumored with the Cowboys and other teams popping up. And he essentially said that he is trying to assemble an all-star staff, and talks of former Bears defensive coordinator and Broncos head coach Vic Fangio is going to come in as his defensive coordinator. Other big names to be rumored to come in on the offensive side of the ball. So just trying to already get this elite coaching staff ready to take over a team. And we had news of Hackett being fired, Denver Broncos coach, over the weekend. If you ask me, it was about 10 weeks too late. But with Hackett being fired from Denver, Sean Payton, Denver possibility. I mean, where do you see this all-star coaching staff going into next season, Joe, with Hackett being fired, the first of probably a handful, or I guess second of a handful of coaches, with Matt Rule being fired quite a bit.
There's no way he goes to Carolina. There's no way.
No.
So what I thought was kind of interesting here, after Nathaniel Hackett got let go, Denver ownership said that the head coach that they do hire will not report to the GM, which is traditional. They'll report directly to the owner. Now, George Payton, not related to Sean, is the GM right now of the Broncos. I wonder if that means that George Payton's job may be on the line as well, because you know that Sean Payton is going to want pretty much ultimate, control, kind of like how Belichick has in New England. So I think that has to be appealing for Sean Payton. And I think that's probably a big reason why that Walton family, the new owners of the Broncos, went that route, is because, hey, this, structuring it this way, that'll be enticing for Sean Payton. The downside is that they still have Russell Wilson, and there's nothing they can do about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Sean Payton, do you think he's going to be wanting to work with Russ?
Well, and the other thing too, I wonder, is if the rumors are true that Sean Payton has Vic Fangio locked in as his defensive coordinator.
That would be awkward.
Is he going to suck up his pride and go back to Denver that just fired him last offseason as head coach?
I would bet that Bronco fan base would cheer like hell to have Fangio back, because his
defense was good.
His defense was always awesome, and they were winning more games when he was head coach and they had Teddy and Drew Lock at quarterback than they are now.
So bad.
So I think that they would welcome him with open arms. It's not like he's got another head coaching gig as an option anyways. He might still live in the Denver area. Shit, who knows? So I think the Broncos are obviously going to be going after him. LA Chargers, that seems like a kind of obvious option given the Justin Herbert, a lot of talent on that team. But if they make a run in the playoffs here,
they just clinched this weekend, so they're
exactly.
In the
so they'd have to be. I think they have to be a one and done to fire Brandon Staley, and that ownership group, or the owner. I guess it's just the single owner for the Chargers, is notoriously cheap. And I wonder if he would be willing to pay up for Sean Payton, because part of the reason why he signed Brandon Staley was because he was a lot cheaper than some of the other options out there. And they have been, like I said, historically cheap, that owner group. He pays $1 in rent to Stan Kroenke to play in that arena every year. Like, that's insane. Somehow, I don't know how he was able to manage that one, but that's how, I guess, because maybe everything else in that stadium is repped by the Rams. I don't understand how that was possible, but that's that. And then, so I don't think that that's an option. Sneaky team, possibly LA Rams. Sean McVay goes to TV. That would obviously need to happen. But if Sean McVay goes to TV, Sean Payton is a juicy choice there. He gets to stay in LA. He gets hopefully a healthy Stafford going into next year. That team's still talented. I mean, they're old, but they've got a lot of talent. They're going to have to obviously fortify that offensive line a ton, but I think he can make Cam Akers work. Cooper Kupp is coming back next year. Tyler Higbee's a very serviceable tight end. You've got other wide receivers on that roster that, maybe he can make Tutu Atwell actually work and scheme him into plays that work for him. So, and that defense, again, it's old, but you've still got stars like Ramsey, like Aaron Donald out there. Bobby Wagner's out there. Again, these guys are all old, but still capable of possibly making another run next year. So if Sean McVay were to go into broadcasting, let's say ESPN says, "Hey, Kirk Herbstreit, we need you here full time to do all college stuff." Amazon then turns over to McVay and says, "Okay, we'll give you $20 million a year or more just to do these Thursday night games." McVay dips out for a couple years. They bring in Sean Payton. Dark horse.
Yeah. for whatever reason, I keep going back to the somewhat obvious choice of where Sean Payton has said he's wanted to coach, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. If Mike McCarthy can't get the Cowboys to go deep in the playoffs, I don't know if Jerry Jones is going to keep him around. And with Vic Fangio coming in to run that defense too, I mean, that just seems like a match made in heaven with Sean Payton coming in, working with Dak Prescott. You've got CeeDee Lamb. You've got Tony Pollard, depending on what that contract situation looks like. Zeke probably can get cut this offseason, but you've got some nice pieces on offense to work with there. Defense is very young and star-studded as well. I don't know. Do you see Mike McCarthy getting canned? I mean, we were kind of having the same conversation last year too, and I just
match made in heaven, absolutely, but the Jerry factor. And I think Sean Payton will get turned off by that because Jerry wants the power. He doesn't want somebody that he hired to be telling him to be making personnel moves. That's in Jerry's mind. That's Jerry's job, is to be making those personnel moves. And I think so. I think for Sean Payton, that's a turnoff because he's gonna want 100% control, or at least like input on 100% of personnel decisions. And, we hear, I mean, I live here in Dallas. We hear on the radio, Jerry has an interview every single week on WFAN. And he's constantly just he's very open about questioning his team and questioning game decisions and questioning different matchups. And if you're Sean Payton, do you want to have to deal with that? Plus not having 100% personnel control? I think if Jerry weren't the way that he is, he's not going to change, by the way. He's in his late 70s. I mean, he is who he is. And that's why he's a superstar. But I think that's going to be the biggest turnoff for Sean Payton, because on paper, it looks awesome. The Jerry factor is where I think that I got to turn it down, unless he's out there offering Sean Payton 35 a year, which Jerry maybe is desperate enough for a Super Bowl to pull something off like that, but he's going to have to blow Sean Payton out of the water with an offer, and probably with control, and own up to having that control. Because if let's go back, I mean, we're going back probably a decade and a half now. Maybe whenever Romo came in. So that was about 07, 08. So about a decade and a half. That's when Bill Parcells was the head coach. And, that's how Bill Parcells liked to run his team. He's the one that's famous for saying, if you want me to be the chef, you better let me buy the groceries too. AKA, if you want me to coach this team, you better let me pick my own players. Sean Payton's is thinking the same way. He wants to be Belichick in that same type of role. Parcells left after a couple of years because Jerry just kept meddling. So that's where I got to turn down. I love the idea in theory, but I just don't know the reality of it.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And if Sean Payton can handpick where he wants to go, he's going to want a lot of control. So I don't know if maybe Jerry does bite the bullet a little bit, but like you said, with his personality, I doubt that. He might be like, yeah, I will. And then
sure,
some
Sean.
Turmoil down the road. Yeah, exactly.
And then they start off 1-2, and Jerry's coming in here, going public with questioning the coaching staff and everything. I can see that happening so fast.
Yeah. Mike McCarthy's former team, Green Bay Packers, take down Miami, stay in the playoff hunt this week. Tua picks up his third concussion of the season in this one. Didn't find that out till afterwards. You self-reported symptoms, but that has to worry you long-term if you're the Miami Dolphins, picking up his third concussion in this season. Obviously, we saw the nightmare that second one was with his fingers and all of that on the national broadcast that week. But is this the end of the line for Miami, at least for this season? And then I guess, what do you see with them doing with Tua long-term?
Well, they have to pick up his fifth-year option after this season, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Can you do that? I mean, it's been shown that Mike McDaniel is awesome. Him and they work together, but if you're out for a third of the season, and concussions, once you get your first concussion, it's easier to get a second. It's easier to get a third. We've seen that. That's pretty obvious now. And they've been, I mean, there was that one there's been multiple that have been pretty severe looking where he's been held out of games, multiple games. I have to be hesitant if I'm Miami to even pick up that 5th-year option. I'm fine playing out the 4th year with him and maybe go with the franchise tag route, but I don't think I can pick up that 5th-year option. And if I'm Tua, I mean, hey, you've made a couple $1 million in your career already. I know it's early, but and he's obviously a mad competitor as any high-end athlete is. But these have been bad concussions, and they're coming way more frequently than we've ever seen, at least recently. Do you have to think about hanging it up? I know that's unlikely that he's going to do that, but doesn't that have to cross your mind if you're Tua, just for your own safety and sanity?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to cross your mind. I ultimately don't think he will, but I mean, you could pick up another one, another 2 next year, the year after that. You really have to start thinking about that long term for your health. I mean, you've obviously seen the studies of CTE and everything, but yeah, going with Miami too. I'm kind of on the same page with you. I think I don't know that you can commit all of that money to the 5th year without really seeing the 4th year. He hasn't done a ton up until this year. You bring in some nice pieces of Tyreek Hill, nice running backs, Jeff Wilson Jr., Mostert that have been serviceable and pretty solid as well in this offense. Mike McDaniel has run the offense really well, and Miami was looking good for a while, but they've faltered a little bit right now. And I like that route that you're suggesting here. You let him play out his 4th year, and he plays the whole season next year, looks just as good as he did at times this year and doesn't really have any long-term concussion issues from it, then maybe throw it on a franchise tag. Maybe you start working on a longer-term deal with him. But I don't know that you can pick up that 5th-year option right now. Yes, it's scary in the NFL, not knowing who your quarterback is going to be for the long term. Obviously, when you draft someone, that's a quarterback you want to have for the next 15 plus seasons. But I don't know if you can tie yourself up to the contract for that year at this point in time.
And Tua's not getting any bigger. I mean, these hits that he's taking, these concussions, he is getting slammed down on the ground. He's not going to get any bigger. He's not going to get any taller. And it's not like he's a great, athlete like Kyler, like Russell, like a young Russell Wilson, where you're able to have a lot more escapability. He's just kind of a small pocket quarterback. And it's been shown all season that's been a recipe for disaster for him. So I don't think you can exercise that 5th year, and maybe they do, but I think that would be a mistake just because it's just so damn risky. And hey, Miami came into this season thinking we're going to go get the best backup in the league in Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy was nothing special at all in his couple starts, but maybe this offseason you look to even upgrade that position, that backup quarterback position, because there's no certainty that Tua is going to be able to survive a season. Maybe you look at a Jimmy G to be a backup. He knows Mike McDaniel's system. They were together for multiple years in San Fran. I think you have no choice but to upgrade that position.
Yeah. Moving over to the other side of this game, Green Bay, like I mentioned earlier, picked up the win, stay in the playoff hunt. Right now, are they your favorite in the NFC to pick up that 7th wild card spot? I mean, they've got 2 home games left, one against Minnesota, who hasn't been playing great football, but has been finding ways to win in close games. And then a Lions team that has been fairly hot, but lost to Carolina in Carolina this last weekend in an ugly game. I mean, they were down big and just kind of got some garbage time points at the end. But do you see the Packers with 2 division rivalry or 2 division opponents coming up at home, able to win out and clinch that 7th seed?
That's what I was about to say, is both these games are at home. So you're going to have Kirk Cousins at Lambeau Field on that frozen tundra
at 3:30 too. No noon
not
game.
A noon game, baby. That's probably going to be the Fox game of the week. So Kirk Cousins with legitimate pressure on him because they're still playing for that 2 seed. San Fran's breathing down their necks for that 2 seed. And
Philly lost last weekend too, so they still have an outside shot too at that 1 seed
to try to go get the 1. Yeah. So Kirk Cousins under pressure at Lambeau I hate to say it, it's not like Rodgers is putting up good numbers, but who do you trust more? Old ass Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't been all that great, or Kirk Cousins, who has been above average? I still trust Rodgers. It's as sketchy as that seems. It's like you still got this Packer team has really kind of turned a corner, and it's not like they've played the greatest competition, but they look a lot more functional than they did early in the season. And then the Lions team, at that point, the Lions fighting for a chance to make the playoffs, like they just crumbled like a cookie in this game against Carolina. I mean, every time I'm sitting here watching Red Zone, it's like every time they flip over to that game, it's Chuba Hubbard running for 30 yards, Deonta Foreman running for 35 yards. Oh my God, Chuba again for 25. Sam Darnold running the option on their ass, like the old school speed option, like college shit. So I can't trust the Lions, given that it's AJ Dillon and Chuba Hubbard and Deonta Foreman versus Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. In that, compare those 2 running games, those 4 running backs. Like, let's be honest. So, and then all they need is the Packers win those 2 games. They need 1 loss from Washington, and Washington right now doesn't even know who their starting quarterback's going to be between Heineke or Carson Wentz. Yeah. So I can't trust them either. So you almost have to put Green Bay as. It's all going to come down to this upcoming weekend, and we'll preview that in the next episode. But it's big time. It's way too possible. Yeah. I got one last game I want to touch on really quick, and that's this Cowboys-Philly game. Cowboys end up getting this win 40-34 over the Eagles, led by Gardner Minshew. Ultimately, my question here is for you. Do you trust Dallas more now after this win? Do you trust them less, or do you think that they're still the same team? I mean, Minshew threw 3 picks and the Eagles still only lost by 6, but Dak, CeeDee Lamb, that duo seems very legit. Obviously the tandem of Pollard, Zeke has been sweet, but this defense which we thought was one of the best in the NFL, is just completely falling apart.
Yeah, that's what's concerning me right now. Yes, like you mentioned, they did have some picks of Gardner Minshew, but I mean, that was expected going into the game. Gardner hasn't played all season outside of garbage time here and there, but Dallas's offense is clicking right now. You do like to see that. Like you mentioned, Dak and CeeDee the last couple of weeks have been on an absolute tear. The running game has been pretty solid as well for them, but yeah, that defense is very concerning. They were absolutely dominant at the beginning of the year, but they've been giving up points on points on points. I mean, Houston came in and put up points on them. Jacksonville put up points on them the prior week. And then, like you said, the Eagles with 3 picks from Gardner Minshew still only lost by 6 and put up 30 some points on them. I mean, that's extremely concerning going into the playoffs. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be the same old Cowboy team. They're going to end up getting a spot, and they're going to end up in a wild card spot and probably have to go to, I think right now, aren't they projected to have to go to below 500 Tampa Bay or Carolina team?
Or Carolina. Don't forget about those frisky Sam Darnolds.
But I don't know. I just don't see the Cowboys being able to put it together. And I think they're going to have another late season collapse that they have the last couple seasons.
Honestly, who do you trust more in that position, Tom Brady or Dak? It's another, I know that Tampa can't move the ball, but until they get into the 2-minute offense, but oh my God. I mean, if we know anything about Dallas, it's that they love to just let everybody down.
Yeah. Last one I wanted to bring up here was that Thursday night game, Jacksonville Jaguars versus the New York Jets, and Zach Wilson getting booed off of the field, bring in a practice squad guy to take over, and Zach Wilson's benched. Had reports coming up from the weekend that the Jets are planning on moving off of Zach Wilson after this season, which I don't blame them. He just does not look the part, does not look, I don't know, mature enough in the NFL. It's just, I don't know. He's just another one of those pretty solid NCAA quarterbacks that just isn't going to transfer over to the NFL. And I'm ready to write him off at this point.
I'm done. I'm out. I'm more out than the Jets probably at this point. I mean, and it's not like, I mean, he's got, his arm looks sweet. Like when he throws the ball, it looks smooth and it looks like he should be able to make the throws and stuff. But then you see where the passes end up and it's like, okay, I was wrong. I mean, there was about a 15-yard in route where the receiver's very, very open. He throws it wide and about 5 yards short. And it's like, that's an easy throw that a college quarterback needs to be making. And he wasn't even, and it's not like he was under pressure either. So it's like, I mean, he's missing badly. It's not little things, balls tipped by the line and they end up getting picked off. It's like, no, he's missing badly. There were 2 balls in that game against Jacksonville that he finally had time to throw. Nobody in his face. And he just threw them up for grabs. One into double coverage, one into triple coverage. Neither of them had nearly the air under them. They had plenty of air under them. They just didn't go very far. It looked like he was throwing them straight up into straight up at the moon. So it's like, what happened to this guy? And I mean, we saw he's one of those guys that looks great in a pro day. And I think that's what got him drafted number 2, because he was lighting it up at his pro day. But in the pro day, you're throwing to one receiver with nobody blitzing you, getting nice, easy, handoff, nice, easy underhand pitches for your snap in a dome, like on a practice field. And you can make nice throws. That's great. That should be the bare minimum for you making the NFL as a quarterback, so that you can throw the ball well. Like, there's so much more to being an NFL quarterback than that, at least a starting quarterback. And that's poise. That's being able to handle the pressure in the pocket. That's being able to handle the pressure of the media, the fans. And they were booing him in the second quarter pretty loudly. And he deserved it. He deserved the boos.
For sure.
They have to be done with him, whether that's send him away for a conditional 6th or straight up cut him. Like, I wouldn't want him in my organization if I'm the Jets. And if that happens, I bet somebody's a taker and says, hey, maybe we can kind of resurrect him a little bit. There's always takers out there for guys that ended up getting picked that high. But
Sam Darnold's going to Carolina.
Dude, and he's going to I bet he gets another shot somewhere. I mean, maybe not as a starter, but I bet this offseason he gets a shot somewhere to be at least a backup or maybe compete for a bridge quarterback job or something. Watch Baker. God damn it. Watch Houston go Will Anderson 1 overall. Baker and Darnold end up in Houston and compete for that starting QB job again. I want that to happen so bad.
That would be funny.
No, I'm out on that. I'm actually got a trivia question for you to close this episode out. So let's get to it.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports into that search bar, subscribe, click that bell so that way you know when our live episodes drop. You can ask us any questions via the chat to the right of the screen during our live feed. If you want to follow Gel, he can be found at DosGel. I can be found at DosJPEG. Send us any questions there. If you do miss our live feed, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, get some swag. What are those platforms, Joe?
Hit us up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to whatever your chosen listening platform is. That written review is very important, helps us, kind of climb the ranks a little bit, at least in terms of the sports podcasting ranks. Take a screenshot of that written review, send it to us on our socials at Dead Arm Sports and on Twitter and Instagram, or just search Dead Arm Sports on Facebook. Make sure to find us on YouTube. Just search Dead Arm Sports. You'll find us there. Should be right at the top of your search bar. Subscribe there. Hit that bell to make sure you get all those notifications, and you'll be blessed forever. Tis the season.
We'll be back with you tomorrow. Going to have the New Year's 6 games along with the college football playoff to preview. Have some solid NFL games on the slate that are going to decide postseason, give that a little bit clearer picture after week 17. And of course, our Drew Locks for yours truly is hanging in there with 2 weeks left. Find out who we pick and find out where we stand tomorrow. Jell, what is that trivia question to close it out?
Deshaun Watson has started 4 games since coming back for the Cleveland Browns. Who has more touchdown passes over their last 4 starts? Deshaun Watson or Zach Wilson?
Got to be Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson with 3. Deshaun with a whopping 2 touchdown passes over your first 4 games.
Bad.
Enjoy your $230 million. Screw you, Cleveland. Cleveland rocks.